pleasure it is to have you back on the channel. And if this is your first time viewing my content, I want to wish you a wonderful welcome as well. Now, in today's video, I am using a very jank setup to do all of this, so I need to be very, very careful not to bump anything, or it could result in disaster. And with that being said, I would like to take the time to introduce you to the American game of football. I noticed that a lot of my viewership comes from the United Kingdom, and as they have their own version of football, or as we Americans would say, soccer, I thought with the Super Bowl coming up tomorrow, as the time of this recording, the Super Bowl is tomorrow, so I thought it would be thematic to bring an explanation to what is happening on the field. Now, I don't want to portray myself as an expert by any means. I'm mostly just a casual fan. I played a little bit in high school. I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but I just wanted to give a very brief overview of what you might see. I won't get too philosophical about strategy or anything like that. We'll just get into some brief explanations. So we're going to start over here on the left-hand side, and if you're asking why I am wearing these natrine or latex gloves, whatever they are, it's because I have a condition called vitiligo that affects the pigment in my skin, and I haven't quite gotten used to that yet. Over the last year or so that it started to show up. So eventually, I will start making videos without the gloves, but for now, that's why. So anyways, we're starting here on the left side of this piece of paper. This is the offense, by the way. So over here we have two wide receivers. Okay, can you guess why they're called wide receivers? That's correct. It's because they play wide and they receive the football. Very good. So, on the left-hand side, we have two wide receivers. And then these five positions here in the middle are considered the offensive line. And these are the guys who are in charge of protecting the quarterback from the defense. So, we have two tackles. We have a left tackle over here, and we have a right tackle over here, depending on the handedness of your quarterback. So let's say this quarterback is right-handed. The left side of the offensive line would be considered the weak or the blind side. So if you ever hear that mentioned in a broadcast, they are referring to whichever side is opposite the quarterback's throwing arm. Most quarterbacks in the NFL are right-handed. There are one or two, I think, that are left-handed, but in that case, the right side would be considered the weak side. So we also have two guards. Now, the difference between tackles and guards, for one, the tackles are usually much bigger players. The tackles are really, if you want to get into semantics, the left tackle is probably the second most important position in the entire game, because his only job is to stop defenders from getting in and sacking or otherwise stopping the progression of the play from the quarterback position. The guards, on the other hand, are usually smaller players. They're usually more agile as well compared to the tackles, and the guards, most of the time, again, there's exceptions to everything, the guards are mostly there to help the running back if it's a run play or otherwise slowing the progression of the defense so that the tackles are not suddenly being attacked by two different defenders at the same time. And then the center position here is called the center because, of course, he is in the center. I know there's also a center fielder, I think, in the other version of football and soccer. This is nothing like that, but I just, that was just a thought that I had. But the center's job is to snap the football to the quarterback, because the quarterback does not start with the ball. It is the center's duty to get it to the quarterback before the defense can get to him, and before the play clock runs down. And we'll get into more of that stuff after we go over some of this. So, behind the center here is the quarterback. The quarterback is the person who designates your offense. He is the one in charge of getting the ball out to your wide receivers, your running backs, your tight ends. He's the one that has to make all of the important decisions, which is why they are paid the most, and it is why so many people obsess over having a good quarterback. Quarterbacks are very, very important. So that is who this is right here. He will have the ball the most as you're watching. And then behind the quarterback, this is the running back. Sometimes some teams will have what's called a fullback, which is basically a less athletic running back that they'll use for run-pass options and blocking and some other less entertaining stuff. But not a lot of people use the fullback anymore, so the fullback is not represented on this scheme here. But the running back, most of the time, is just there to run the ball. You do have some backs that are more utility players that you can use as a receiver or for blocking or other stuff, but in this designation, this is the running back. So the quarterback will snap the ball, pass it off to the running back, and then it is the job of the guard, the tackle, and sometimes the tight end to ensure that the running back has a clear lane to run through to gain yardage. And that brings me to the final member of our offensive side of the ball here, is the tight end position. Now, this is called the tight end position because they sit directly on the end of the offensive line. It's very important to know that, I promise. But if you have kept up with the musical sensation that is Taylor Swift, the man that she is currently dating, Travis Kelce, plays the tight end position. The tight end will usually, more often than not, the tight end will be your biggest skill position player. Tight ends are huge individuals. So when you have your wide receivers out here on the ends, they are usually the lanky speed guys. The tight end is usually just the guy that bullies everybody else on the field to catch the football. And we'll talk about that when we get to the defense here in a moment, but that is the tight end position. Now, we can flip this over and take a look at the defense. Now, defense can get a little bit confusing because there are a number of different ways to run a defense. In this example, I have drawn up a 4-3, and it's called a 4-3 because, as you can see, we have 4 down linemen, so these guys will match up directly across from the offensive tackles, offensive guards. They each have different roles that we'll get into in a minute. And then we have 3 linebackers. These guys play behind the defensive line most of the time. Again, I'm a huge defense nerd. I played defense when I played in high school. there's a lot of different ways to do this. I like the 4-3. I'm getting ahead of myself. Whatever. So we have our 4 defensive linemen. We have our 3 linebackers. We have 2 corners and 2 safeties. So in this example, we have over here the cornerback, whose job it is to line up with wide receivers and prevent them from making a play on the football. So they will more often than not, you're gonna find guys that are just trying to play coverage, to just stay on their man and prevent the quarterback from even throwing that way. And then we have behind them, we have linebackers. Now these guys, the linebacker position is a really, really fun position because they can do a whole lot of different things. Right here, this is called the middle linebacker, MLB. That's the middle linebacker. The middle linebacker can, depending on the play that is called, they can move up to help defend the run. They can move over this way to maybe help cover a tight end, or what you'll also see sometimes is you can move the middle linebacker down onto the line to sort of disguise what the play is, and then before the snap they'll move back in and do more middle linebacker things. You can also do that over here with the strong side linebacker. That's SLB, strong side linebacker. So the strong side linebacker will usually just be there to stop tight ends and running backs from going up this way. That's also why you have the strong safety. So the safety is kind of a hybrid between a corner and a linebacker, especially the strong safety. So the strong safety is a lot like the middle linebacker, where you can move this guy all over the field before the ball is snapped and given to the quarterback to try and confuse whoever they're playing against, to sort of disguise the scheme that they're going for and what the play call is. But the strong safety is called the strong safety because they play, usually they stick to the strong side and try to stop the run, stop tight ends, provide additional coverage on the strong side of the field. And then over here we have the weak side linebacker, who is usually the weak side linebacker will be one of your best pass rushers, because you want the pressure to come down to try to get to the quarterback. So you will usually, and this doesn't always happen, sometimes you split them out, but you will usually put your best pass rusher on the weak side. Sometimes they might play defensive end, sometimes they'll be linebacker. It depends on scheme. But that does move me now to the defensive ends and the defensive tackles. So the defensive ends will line up with the tackles more often than not. So the defensive end's entire job, 99% of the time, no matter what the play is, most of the time their entire job is to just get to the quarterback. So again, your best pass rushers are usually going to be over here on the weak side. And again, this is sort of misleading because weak side linebacker can also be called outside linebacker. So you'll sometimes see these used interchangeably. That goes the same for, and that also applies on this side as well. So you'll have outside linebackers that can move down and pass rush. Sometimes they'll just stick back here, and usually you don't want your outside linebackers to end up in coverage, but it does happen that sometimes you'll have a linebacker on a wide receiver. That usually means the play is broken down, but whatever, I'm getting ahead of myself again. But so your defensive end's entire job is just to get down and get to the quarterback. That's it. That's all you want them to do. The defensive tackles and the defensive tackle on the weak side is usually the biggest dude on the field. and sometimes this can also be referred to as a nose tackle. So NT. The nose tackle is an actual, like, specific designation. Not every defensive tackle is a nose tackle, but if it is a true nose, it's usually going to be the biggest dude there, and their job is just to stuff the run, basically. And then your second D tackle, if you have one in a 4-3 scheme like this, your second D tackle is basically just a utility supporting kind of role. You usually don't put a pass rusher here. This is usually just a guy that basically plays a second strong side linebacker. The second defensive tackle is essentially your utility, your insurance. So he can move over and help this guy try to get through the offensive line. He can move this way, and he can try and help stop the run. You very rarely see them move out for coverage duty, but this is basically your utility piece on the defensive line. So, and again, I am by no means an expert at any of this. This is just how I understand football, and I just want to give you sort of a basis if you do want to get into American football to kind of understand a certain terminology that you'll see used pretty often. So when I played in high school, I went to a very small high school. So when I played free safety, and I played running back. I did not enjoy playing running back. It was not a lot of fun for me. We had a friend of ours. His name was Connor. He was like 6'6" and like 280 something pounds. He was absolutely huge. And every time I was given the ball, I was expected to run past this man. And, not to give anything away about myself or me personally, but I am not the biggest man in the world, okay? It never went well for me to try and get past this man, Connor. So I much preferred the free safety position, because all I had to do when I played free safety, my entire duty was to basically just play zone, and then wherever the ball went, I would follow and try to assist my strong safety or my corners or whoever was covering the guy that had the ball. My entire duty was basically just to move that way to prevent a bigger play, or to provide pressure on the wide receiver into running into another guy, or rethinking where he's going, stuff like that. So free safety was a lot of fun. It was a lot of the time for me. It was just cardio, because I didn't get a lot of tackles. It was a very small school, so I played two positions, and I didn't want to screw myself up for when I played running back. So I didn't get a lot of tackles. I was not the best football player in the world. I only played in high school for a year, so I have very limited experience with the actual game myself. But free safety is still to this day my favorite position in football, because you can see some really good free safeties in the NFL that are just ridiculous ball hawks that go up and you grab interceptions and defend. You get pass defenses and pass blocks and all that kind of stuff. Free safety is really like a supporting role in most cases, but I think free safety is a lot of fun. So that is the positions that you will see in the NFL. To go over once more, we have the cornerback, also referred to as defensive back, interchangeably with safeties. Sometimes you'll have free safeties that play corner. Sometimes you'll have corners that play free safety, and they move around and whatnot. Kind of the same. You'll have outside linebackers play defensive end. You won't really have middle linebackers move all that often. Middle linebackers is a very specialized position. But again, you have corners, linebackers, safeties, defensive ends, defensive tackles. And then on the offensive side, you have the quarterback right in the middle. He gets the ball the most important position in the entirety of football. You have the running back, the wide receiver, the tight end, tackle, guard, center, and then for some bonus knowledge that you may hear from time to time. So, wide receivers on play sheets, it looks kind of like this in a way, where you'll see the O's. You won't see, the letters or anything, but you'll see the O's for the formation. The wide receivers will be spread out more because this is very cramped. But underneath the wide receivers or any of the receiver positions, they will be designated a letter. So over here is the X receiver. On the far left side, this will be the best wide receiver on the team that will line up far and look for big plays. A lot of the time, sometimes, you'll run them up over the middle and some, if they're like really, really good route runners like Justin Jefferson, who can get separation right off the line, sometimes they'll run them like right over the middle or on a shorter route just to get the ball out immediately because they're that good. But your best wide receiver will almost always be playing the X. And then this wide receiver here between the X and the tackle, this is referred to more often than not as the slot receiver, but it is also the F receiver on the actual play sheet. At least in my day, that would be the F receiver. You'll have to excuse my handwriting, by the way. I have never been the steadiest with pen and paper, but regardless, when an announcer says the slot, they're usually referring to the position between an outside receiver and the nearest offensive tackle. So sometimes you can have two slot receivers. Sometimes people will run 4 wide receivers, even 5 wide receivers, and you can have multiple slots. I don't know what the second slot is called. I very rarely see that, but the tight end would be the Y receiver, and then the wide receiver on the far right is the C. So if you ever hear that come up, that is what they are referring to. So X, slot, Y, and Z. So I hope if you've watched this video, you've gained some insight into how American football is played. If you enjoyed this video, I would be more than glad to make a second video to go more over play calling and scheme and how things are actually designed. But I didn't want to go too in depth in the very first video for this. But again, if you enjoyed, please do let me know down in the comments, and I'd be glad to make more like this and just talk about some of the nerdier nonsense when it comes to football. And I have no doubt that somebody in the comments will say something that I got wrong. And they may not be too pleasant about it, but that's alright. Again, I am by no means an expert. I'm just a fan of the game, and I hope that I have helped you in some way to better understand this beautiful, beautiful game that we play over here in the States. Anyways, I thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing, though of course you are not obligated to do so. And I will speak with you all again soon. Goodbye for now.